So that's one other story. I think that allows us to mention the Anunnaki for the first time.
I think it's a plausible mythological story.
Yeah.
Accretion of matter in the formation of planets as
Every
well.
episode you come up with a word and I have to think, I know that word. And in my brain I'm going, go through this source. Accretion?
Yeah.
I love the word wobble. We should say it more. We're going to say it a lot in this episode.
It's probably an unused...
Yeah. It's not used
a relatively unused word, yeah.
I think we need more wobble. I like wobble. There are other theories as well to say that to mention David Icke again. He grabbed onto this hollow moon theory, and apparently he phoned a friend, which is
Who's that?
I don't know. I think it was Jeremy Clarkson.
I was going to say I wasn't sure you had a friend.
Yeah. Bill. No, it was phoned some bloke in Africa, and he sort of said, "Look, I've heard this theory. What do tribes in Africa think how the moon was created?"
Okay.
And he didn't tell him anything about the hollow moon theory. He just said, what's the stories? What are the ancient stories, sort of thing.
Okay.
And this guy said, well, the ancient stories, we believe the moon was made by the gods for us, so that we could be born, so that we could evolve on this planet, and that it's an egg laid by a dragon. That was the yolk was hollowed out for some reason, and then placed in our orbit for us so that we could live.
So their ancient mythology says that the moon was placed there by gods who were probably misidentified extraterrestrials, visiting and imparting wisdom, and that it was an egg that was the yolk was hollowed out of.
Yeah,
right.
The yolk is hollowed.
Well, that does go quite well with the hollow moon theory.
It fits quite nicely. Ike was. I'll call him Mikey. Ike was our Davey was pretty convinced by this theory. That's the theory he went with, and
it's definitely something that I'd not heard of. But that is very,
there's a couple of Russian scientists who are the ones that basically caused the problem with this. Michael Vassin and Alexander
Sherbakov.
Well done. We discussed before the videos. I'm not saying that name. There you go, Damien. Practice that, mate.
I don't know if I've said it right, but
Sherbakov.
I think that.
I was looking at going
right.
But what? And you just went Sherbakov. No, yeah,
I don't think it could be Shishir.
No, I think you were right.
Sherbakov.
No, we could have done. I could have gone on YouTube and watched the video and see.
Yeah, that's probably. But yeah,
it's more fun. But because they're scientists, and they suggested this was the theory, I think that's legitimised a couple of these theories.
Yeah.
So those are the two big things. There's also a couple of things like how the moon has only a mass of about 2/3 of the Earth, which has been jumped on a great deal as well by saying that it must be hollow because its mass is too low.
Sorry, do you mean its density is 2/3?
Density is 2/3 that of the Earth.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So I mix up the difference between density and mass. Most people don't care. Do you care?
I care very much because it's very different.
It's not very different. It's not like
mass is a measurement of weight, essentially.
Of how much material is in.
But density is a measurement of the mass per volume.
How much crap is
per volume per meter cubed.
But it's not.
So density is vastly different.
It's like the difference between ice cream and sorbet. It's not like the difference between.
No. Mass and density of mass is measured in grams. Density is measured in like grams per meter cubed.
But my point is, most people don't give a shit. It's reasonably similar. But anyway, yes, density. The density of the moon is 2/3 out of the Earth. Yes. So again, that just reinforces that's another scientific thing that it must be hollow.
Okay. But it's also interesting that the density is 2/3 that of the Earth. If they supposedly came from the same object originally, the same celestial body that was impacted, and they split to form the two bodies, why would you have such a vastly varying density? Is always an interesting question to
I
go
have a
down.
theory.
Okay.
This is the bit where in the video I'll put he has a theory. Right. In the last 2 to 3 years, a couple of scientists came up with a new Earth theory of this impact theory.
Yeah.
Is that basically this Theia object didn't glance the Earth, it actually twatted it. Full ball, straight on hit.
Okay.
Yeah. Both objects were disintegrated basically and turned into a massive molten gas cloud. That gas cloud then spun where they would have had a molten core. The outer edges of that gas cloud would have cooled quicker than the inner, larger massed air part. There's more energy in towards the middle, so that would have cooled slower, much slower. The outer section would have cooled sooner. The outer section would have cooled into the moon.
Okay.
Sooner.
Yeah, no, actually, that makes sense. Actually, thinking about it like that.
The lower energy would have mean why it's lower mass, because there's lower forces acting upon that object as it forms. So this explains why the moon is older than the Earth. The zircon effect would have begun once the moon cooled, and then it would have started to decay. On the Earth, once it reformed, it's like a new world again. So then again, the zircon things would have started to decay from that point. So this is why the moon is older, but that's why we can record it as being older. The moon reformed. The problem was, they argued as well, that doesn't make any sense, because if the Earth and Theia were two different objects, remember the isotope thing we mentioned? There should be two different isotope signatures. And what we said earlier was that there wasn't.
We're not seeing the different. Yeah.
3 years ago, somebody thought, well, let's have another look at the experiment, because it was done 50 years ago. The science has come a lot more than that. When they redid the experiment, they found actually there is two distinct signatures, but they're very close, and the difference was just below what they were capable of detecting. So there is a difference, but it's only in the last 50 years we've had the technology to be able to detect the two isotope signatures. So there is two signatures, but they are similar. They're very similar.
Okay, that's quite interesting. That does give more credence to this.
Yeah, it was a Dr. Wang, which made me go.
Dr. Wang.
Wang.
I love that, Dr. Wang. It gives more credence to this. To the impact.
To the
impact theory, and less credence to it being a captured object from what we've been through.
The captured object doesn't really make sense. So this theory is now the current most popular theory in how it was created. It does kind of put a little poo-poo on Earth being a common, or life on Earth being common if the moon is so important, because how often will this have happened?
What the collision and having
the way it happened,
having a moon with the exact properties that our moon has, so close, such a big ratio to the parent planet. Yeah, okay.
But the other argument is it may have happened quite a lot, because in fact, the physics of how planets form means that in our section you would get quite a large number of small rocky planets. It should be noted as well, Mars was also battered in a similar way. Mars's axis is also off kilter by about 20 degrees, which shows that's the main sign of all the other planets are dead on. Their axis is vertical to the horizontal, because that's how they formed. They formed that way, and that naturally a planet would have a vertical axis.
And the other planets haven't been impacted by a big enough object that could have
if something hit Jupiter, wouldn't even.
Well, exactly, that's what I mean. Something hits Jupiter, it's a gas giant. You're not going to get. It's not going to change its orbital. It's not going to change its spin on its axis. It's not going to change the.
But Mars is off kilter, the same as ours. Which means Mars has seasons the same as we do, which means that was hit by something pretty big as well. So both
with
planets
the evidence that we know of it having rivers in the past, water still locked up in ice on the polar caps, and so flowing rivers in the past, volcanic activity in the past. It seems very likely then that there was the potential, if not life on Mars.
But you've got two planets in our Goldilocks zone in this solar system. They've both been hit by other bodies that, on our experience, on our world, luckily it created the moon. On Mars, it didn't create a similar moon anyway, but it did create the off-axis. Means it was hit by something. Yeah. There was two situations here, and it happened 100% of the time. it was hit by something.
Yeah. So the evidence from our own solar system suggests that we need to investigate this in other solar systems. Yeah. Very much so.
Also, I did see something about these shallow. It rang like a bell. There's quite a lot of water on the moon, they think, but I think it's trapped just under the surface.
Yep.
A scientist is a NASA scientist, so sorry. The conspiracy theorists will just go NASA scientist. Beep.
Was it never?
Fast forward a minute.
Never a straight answer.
Yeah. Just fast forward 60 seconds because it's going to annoy you probably. So there's water just in there, but that is frozen in its ice, and then the vibration travels through this material easier than rock. Okay. So when they thought it was rock, it didn't make sense. But if you include this large amount of water just under the surface, the quakes are very shallow. So then it bouncing around makes more sense because it's almost like it's moving through water, not stone. So if you consider the vibration as if it was traveling through an ocean, it makes more sense than rock, and the math makes more sense.
Okay, that's quite interesting. So maybe a lot of trapped water on the moon as well.
So they think there might be a lot of trapped water just under the surface. That's what they think.
Which would be good if we do, or already have built a base there.
Yeah. Oh, that's a totally different.
That's a different episode.
When we get to 1969, we're going to go. So the first moon landing, or was it? So yeah, we'll get into that. So all right, opinion.
Yeah. So
none of the common sense I've discussed. Just what do you believe? What's your gut say?
What does my gut say?
Is the moon natural? Is it a natural phenomenon? Is it a natural?
I'm not 100%. I think for it to be a completely hollow object that is essentially like the Death Star, created by an advanced, intelligent race and put there as a stabiliser, it just seems a monumental task for us to complete. However, saying that, something that's a lot more advanced than us,
aliens,
possible.
I mean, David Ikes says it was the Reptilians.
I think it's plausible that it's a hollow structure created by intelligent beings. I don't think it's that likely, though.
Yeah.
I think it's much more likely there's just something about moon formation that we don't understand yet.
Yeah.
That we need more time to study to then go, well, this is why this and that, and and that's why it's got the extra titanium, and we will figure it out.
Yeah.
But we just
don't. We'll strip mine in the meantime.
But we just don't have the science to explain everything as yet.
Yeah.
That's my personal belief. What about yourself?
Yeah. No, because like I say, David Icke's argument is that it's the Reptilians. But again, in the next episode, we're going to start off with this: the Reptilians came from Mars, built the moon as a base, and then went underground into the hollow Earth. So we'll go through all that. And actually, there's the Hopi tribe actually kind of back that story up.
Yes,
with their ancient myths. About where mankind came from and things, but again, we'll go into that a lot more when we do the next episode. My personal opinion is the moon is just the moon. There's nothing. It wasn't made. It wasn't an object that was hollowed out and dragged into orbit by aliens. The fact that we are able to look up at it and think there's a lot of coincidences here. It's because it's there. That allowed us to be here to look up at it. It's not we're here looking up at it thinking it's weird. It's the fact that it's weird that has allowed us to be here to look up at it. I don't think any of the things that we've talked about are definitive evidence of anything. I mentioned the craters, so the shallow craters on one part.
Yeah.
When NASA actually did this and looked at it, they said a lot of the older craters are too shallow. And that they admit they're too shallow. They should be much deeper than based on the width. But they looked at newer craters and they said no, they're perfectly. They're deep enough for the width. They totally mathematically make sense. There's a lot of another thing is that people misunderstand is there is actually a very very thin atmosphere on the moon. And when an impact hits and throws dust up into the atmosphere, this very, very thin atmosphere, it takes quite a long time for it to come back down again because the gravity's much lower.
Yes.
So I wonder whether a lot of the older craters are simply filled up with dust. So they're shallow because they've kind of been filled up over years.
Time. Yeah,
so
it's not by the dust from subsequent impacts.
It's not. It's not weathering or erosion. It's landfill.
Yeah, kind of. Okay, yeah, no, yeah, I could.
But I will point out though that I've tried to look at that as an explanation, and I can't. That's just my own thinking. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, that makes sense to you. It's just a logical.
I've tried to Google that, and I can't find anything that says why they're shallower.
No, I look as well, and I couldn't find.
I can't find anything to explain the uranium 236, the Neptunium 237, why there's so much titanium. The brass, I found out this, like I said, that one little thing. The uranium 236 maybe, but I found out from one source. It's weird.
I think it's far more likely though that there's an advanced intelligent species that has used the surface of the moon in the past for something involved in nuclear power production or atomic weapons research.
I could see building a base on the moon. Why would you hollow it out? And there's no need. How much living space do you need?
Or also, how long would it take to build a titanium structure the size of the moon?
Yeah, it's unnecessary.
Given that you'd expect beings, intelligent humanoid beings, more advanced than us, somewhere else in our galaxy, to be probably of a similar size to us, maybe double the size, but they're certainly not going to be 100 times the size of us, or 1,000 times the size of us.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
They can't.
How much space do you need? You build a base, fine, and you could have hundreds of thousands of people living on a massive base on the moon on the dark side that we would never see. There's no reason to hollow the damn thing out or build a star. It would be. I can understand it being captured and being moved into an orbit for us. Yeah, but if an alien species went right, that would work. But the moon isn't right, so life won't evolve. We need a moon.
Yeah, you'd be talking about a civilization though that had developed at least the capacity to resource the power of its sun for energy consumption, and to drag moons and planets around. The energy involved is going to be quite substantial.
I don't believe it. I don't believe either.
I'm not saying it's impossible.
It's the why that I don't follow. I just don't. The metal and the metallic thing. No. Okay. An alien race dragged it in so that we could flourish. Okay. I can follow the why. Yeah. But why would they then make it hollow?
Well, unless they're living internally within this structure and they've got their own. But again, would they choose to live?
Going, I want a swimming pool in my back garden. I'm going to have to hollow this fucker out. No, it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make a lot of sense.
It's not big enough. There'd just be no need. And also, if they're still there, why don't they just come on the Earth? Why don't they just live here?
Well,
it doesn't make sense to me. But that's just my personal opinion. It's the whys that don't make sense. And something I'm going to come back to a lot of just the fact that we don't understand why Neptunian, this evil bond material for building Neptunian bombs, not a real thing.
These heavy. These heavy radioactive elements.
Or the fact that we don't totally understand why the moon is in its orbit that it is, that like say this tidal locked orbit. Just the fact that we don't quite understand that isn't proof of something else. It's something that we still need to explore and need to look at.
Yeah.
And when we go back to the moon and we start mining it for all this titanium, I'm certain we'll drill and we'll do things like this and we'll...
Well, we will. They just probably won't tell you that they've done it. Like not going back to the Cydonia region on Mars, for example, after the Face on Mars picture. They've never really gone back to investigate it properly. Let's not go back there ever again.
Yeah, but for that one though, it would be... I wouldn't mind going back and having another photo of this, because that's be like, that's fine. Have you got $100 billion, which is what it'll cost to send a mission there, and then we go, yeah, fuck it, don't matter.
Well, it is probably a commercial.
How much does it really matter?
It's probably a commercial viability thing rather than we're not going back there because we're hiding anything.
But we'll go back to Mars now because we want to get to the asteroid belt. Because
we want to mine it.
Because we want to mine the asteroid belt. That's the only reason we'll go to Mars. We might go to Mars to live, maybe. But to be honest, we could live here. We could just build tower blocks here, and we could all live in Texas if we didn't mind living in small houses or big houses.
Yeah.
I think, honestly, at some point,
provided we stop burning fossil fuels relatively quickly.
I tell you what, we'll do an episode of what we think the Earth will be like in 100 years. That'll be a good episode. We'll do that. Okay. I've just thought of it.
It would be a good episode, but it's slightly off topic. But yeah, it'd be a good episode.
No, because we will do off-topic episodes every so often. Okay. We are going to do debate episodes as well.
Yeah,
where,
that's actually quite good.
Just to keep ourselves interested along the way. So we're going to do this chronological thing in order, but then every so often we'll just go off-topic and just talk about something interesting. Because this is a lot of research, and sometimes we might need to break it up.
Yes.
So yeah, that's my opinion. Really, is that the just the fact that we don't understand something, and there are things in this that I don't get. Doesn't mean thing, but also there's a basic principle here, is that the moon is different. It's not the Earth, and people keep saying, well, that's not naturally on Earth. I guess yeah, it might be natural for the moon though. Right. So our next episode is going to be the creation of or humanity and humanity's appearance.
Yes.
But that is our episode on the moon done. That's 4.51 billion years ago done. We're now going to jump ahead a little bit.
No, it was done.
250,000 years ago.
It was done a few years ago, mate.
Yeah. So, thanks very much, guys, and we'll see you next time.
Okay, see you next week. I can't even finish the video.
Right, I've got a hangover, and now my heartburn is starting.
Oh,
so
mate.
shut up.